Alice, how are you?
Good, Yaman. How are you?
I'm good. Happy Monday. Edward, how are you?
Not bad. What's going on?
Nothing much. Another weekend. Nothing too exciting. Let's see. YouTube is okay, I think. If you're on YouTube, please let me know what the audio quality is like. Yoda is here bright and early today. Yoda, how are you?
I'm doing well.
You excited for 1010?
Yeah, that's all I'm waiting for, really.
How many days left? Are you counting down?
I believe it's 25. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Is it Edward? Edward agrees with you. Looks like it's 25. All right, good. This is really weird because I saw Omar coming up on YouTube before I saw it on X, even though YouTube is taking the stream from X. How is that even possible? So weird. Anyway, 25 days to go. Amazing. Any change in your expectations, Yoda?
Still 25 basis point for me.
Okay. I was asking about 1010, but I got you. Okay, cool. Thanks for letting us know. I guess you're very excited about the Fed meetings. So you still expect 25 basis points. Wow. Even though the probabilities indicated by the bond yields is ever shifting towards 50 basis point cut. Interesting. Omar, what do you think? 25 or 50?
Well, it's shifting heavily towards 50. Just in the last 10 minutes, we had, what's his name? Bill Dudley, former president of the New York Fed, just put out an opinion piece on Bloomberg saying the Fed needs to cut 50 basis points. This is a nice short article. I think he laid out the case very well. In fact, he convinced me that a 50 basis point cut is appropriate and that they should do it. The Wall Street Journal just now put out another opinion piece from someone else saying we should do a 50 basis point cut. The balance of the risks is probably tilted more heavily to the labor market and wanting to avoid a self-reinforcing cycle that makes the labor market actually get worse. So, they have their dual mandate. I believe both sides of that mandate are now much more balanced, and rates are far too restrictive. They should be on a much more neutral level. And absolutely, it makes sense to cut 50 basis points.
Yoda, what's your counter argument to that?
Well, I think, if Fed goes for 50 basis point, it kind of puts into their ultra conservative stance in all the previous months and years into question. It's like slapping their own face, right? We should have done this earlier. And just so to kind of save face, and to kind of protect the integrity of their strategy, I think they're going to go 25. Now, it doesn't mean that they can't follow up with a 50 basis point quickly in the next round. But I feel like, yeah, now the market now expecting 50 basis point, if and when they get a 25, it's going to be pretty negative. So I much rather the market going in conservative and then get the positive surprise.
I got you. Interesting. I see Telescope in the audience if he wants to come up and talk about FSD. We can switch to that too. Omar, you said Bill Dudley just came out. Was it in recent? You said a few minutes ago. I know he's been very kind of out there with interview after interview talking about it. But is this a new article?
Yeah, I'd love to read it really quickly because I think it's pretty well informed, obviously.
Yeah, go ahead, please. Thank you.
All right, so this is a Bloomberg opinion piece, came out about a few hours ago. The Fed should go big now. I think it will. An aggressive 50 basis point reduction in interest rates makes sense, by Bill Dudley. The U.S. Federal Reserve faces a crucial decision at its policymaking meeting this week. Ease off slightly on monetary restraint with a 25 basis point interest rate cut, or go for a rare 50 basis point cut to fend off a recession. What should it do, and what will it do? The answers to these questions don't necessarily have to be the same, but this time around, I think they will be. The tension between 25 or 50 has increased notably, thanks to news articles that have pushed market expectations towards a larger move. As I noted last Friday at the Bretton Woods Committee conference in Singapore, the logic supporting a 50 basis point cut is compelling. The two objectives of the Fed's dual mandate, price stability and maximum sustainable employment, have come into much closer balance, suggesting that the monetary policy should be neutral, neither restraining nor boosting economic activity. Yet short-term interest rates remain far above neutral. This disparity needs to be corrected as quickly as possible. Consider the economic data. The unemployment has risen by 0.8 percentage points from its trough in January 2023. In the past 3 months, payroll employment has increased at the slowest pace since 2020. Wage inflation has moderated to less than 4%, while the Fed's preferred measure of consumer price inflation is running around 2.5%. Although core consumer prices rose a bit more than expected in August, the move was driven by categories that tend to lag, insurance and shelter, and the latest producer price report suggests that core personal consumption expenditures index will remain considerably tamer. One could even argue that the downside risk to employment outweighs the upside risk to inflation. When the labor market deteriorates beyond a certain point, the process tends to be self-reinforcing. Every time the 3-month average unemployment rate has risen by more than half a percentage point from its low during the past 12 months, the ultimate result has been a larger increase, at least 1.9 percentage points, and a recession. The threshold might be higher this time, given that the rise in unemployment has been fueled largely by rapid labor force growth, but this doesn't invalidate the idea that a tipping point exists and that the labor market has either crossed or is approaching it. A 50 basis point cut would also fit well with the Fed officials' next set of economic projections. Why might not they go for 50? Well, first, the expected destination for short-term interest rates matters much more than the pace of reductions. Expectations drive longer-term rate increases. With roughly 250 basis points of cuts priced in by 2025, the size of this week's move shouldn't matter much. Second, the Fed wants to make sure it's conquered inflation. They don't want to risk cutting too fast too early. Third, the U.S. economy has slowed a little bit, but it's still far from a recession. Atlanta Fed's GDP now, 2.5%. Finally, a smaller move might preempt complaints from Donald Trump that the Fed is boosting the economy and they would prefer to stay out of politics. Despite this, I believe the Fed will do 50. Chair Powell favors an aggressive approach. In his speech at Jackson Hole, he pointedly observed that a further weakening of the labor market, which seems to be happening, would be unwelcome. Monetary policy is tight when it should be neutral or even easy. And a bigger move now makes it easier for the Fed to align its projections with market expectations rather than delivering an unpleasant surprise not warranted by the economic outlook.
Yoda. Thank you, Omar. By the way, let's say who is Bill Dudley? He is the ex-head of New York Fed. Bill Dudley, if I remember correctly. Just make sure that's correct. He
Right.
served as the president of Federal Reserve Bank of New York from 2009 to 2018 and vice chairman of Federal Open Market Committee. So a very, very important position. There's a bit of a ranking to these positions. There's the president, and then there's a vice chair. And the third important position is the head of New York Fed because they do the transactions. So he has
so
ear.
for people who don't know, the Federal Reserve Bank is made up of member banks across the United States, the New York Fed being the most important one.
Yeah. Yoda.
Yeah, I think it's 25 basis point per assassination attempt. So I guess you're right, Omar. We need 50.
All right. Yeah, very important topic. This is going to come out in 2 days, exactly 2 days, 24 hours and counting. And extremely volatile expectations, probabilities assigned to 50 versus 25. Just a couple of days ago, the probability of a 50 base point cut was as low as 5 to 10%. And now things have changed again. And in the meantime, Omar, Elizabeth Warren, Senator, sent a letter to Powell asking for a 75 basis point cut. What do you think about that?
I mean, it seems a little over the top, but that's what we were saying about 50. I mean, I don't think the situation is really that bad. She may want to help Democrats' election chances by front running the cuts rather than, so they're going to say, look, we expect 100 basis points of rate cuts by the end of the year, 250 basis points of rate cuts. That's 2.5 percentage points by the end of 2025. How you kind of spread that out over that time period, whether you sort of front run it with 25 or 50, to Bill Dudley's point, it's really neither here nor there. But yeah, I think probably 50 makes sense given the balance of risks, but 25 wouldn't be the end of the world either. I'm just happy that the discussion we're having is should they cut 25 or 50 or even 75, and not should they cut or should they not cut. It seems like we're finally going to start to see the target rate come down this week, and we've been waiting a long time for that.
Okay, good. There's a poll at the top of our screens in the Nest by macro analysts. Predict the Fed action on September 18. You can go and cast your vote at the top of our screens what you think the Fed will do. All right, let's switch to FSD. We have Yoda on the board, Telescope on the board. And by the way, tonight we have the AI Amateurs Space, episode 7. Hopefully Robert Scoble will be there. Maybe Yoda will be there. And Omar, are you going to be there tonight at 8 p.m. Central, 7 p.m. 8 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Central?
Yeah, I should be there.
We have a lot to talk about, from ChatGPT's new version to a bunch of other topics. All right, but FSD belongs in Tesla Live. Telescope, how are you doing? Any news on the FSD front that you can share with the rest of us?
Yeah, first of all, how are you doing?
I'm doing all right. Doing all right. Happy Monday.
Happy Monday, start of a new week. Yeah, so a little bit of mostly from last night, but a lot of kind of good news up in the air. Over the last couple of weeks, we've seen a lot of updates going out, a lot of progress, but most of the actual updates have only gone out to kind of small groups. So last night we saw the first wave of 12.5.2.1 going out to like just kind of regular customers for the first time, and it actually went out as the pretty average, 1 to 2% wave. That's looking very promising as the first wave of it just went out about 2.5 days prior. It's going out to hardware 3 and hardware 4 vehicles. Looks like a little bit of a prioritization of hardware 4 at the moment. But it does look like Tesla is trying to get most of the vehicles that were on 12.5 previous builds onto this. And we're also seeing for the first time some vehicles on 12.3.6 finally getting moved to the 12.5 branch. So those who have been without the kind of the nagless driving will finally be able to start experiencing it. I'm predicting that we should see another wave, if not today, later tonight, at least sometime in the next day or so. So this is very good news. We're starting to see a little bit of movement, and overall, I know for a fact that Tesla's AI team has been working incredibly hard, even over the weekends, to try to get things out pretty soon. I've gotten a lot of questions about this, so just to clarify, this build does not have actual smart summon. It's only kept on the 12.5.3 branch, but we should still see some progress with that soon. So kind of keep an eye out for a couple more waves of the last update, and we'll see what goes on from there.
Thank you very much for all the updates. Omar, what do you think about this increased push to get 12.5 to hardware 3 cars?
Well, people are frustrated. They are seeing that there are new versions, but they don't have the latest version. So Tesla needs to make their customers happy and get them the latest software, get them no nag, get them actually smart summon, or else, people might not be happy, might not want to buy it. Um, I mean, ultimately, for keeping subscribers, the most important thing is that you don't see a regression in performance, right? So that's also something that they can measure, if people are canceling it because it's getting worse or something like that. So I think they are, they're doing incredible work. The updates, the latest ones, are capable of doing things that just make you go, wow, I can't believe it just did that. But, Elon said wide release of actually Smart Summon next week. There's no wide release of actually Smart Summon. I'm guessing they found a couple issues here and there they want to fix. The 12.5.2 that's going out appears to be the same model as 12.5.3, but with the actually Smart Summon disabled. So they're kind of sending out the one without Smart Summon. Presumably, hopefully, the 12.5.3 with Smart Summon will follow soon after. The good news is that the model has been unified between hardware 3 and hardware 4. So we got 12.5.2 on the hardware 3 car we have, doing just the same type of stuff as hardware 4. You can't really notice any performance difference anymore, which is very good. The latest build is generally very good. I've had, still like the other 12.5 builds, very low safety critical interventions, almost none. Very high percentage of zero intervention drives start to finish. The wheel does appear to be a bit jerkier in this build for some reason. Like you kind of see the wheel like moving back and forth a lot, which is a little strange. Some of the earlier versions of 12.5 were so smooth. There was like no jerkiness of the wheel. It was all smooth motions. But I guess that's kind of superficial, maybe, and maybe it'll be fixed in a different version, or maybe that sort of jerkiness was necessary to reduce interventions or problems or something in the model. I'm not really sure, but that is one thing I noticed. Overall, I think people who are on 12.3 are going to be blown away by 12.5. I'm probably a little desensitized to it because I've already been driving it for months, but it really is a huge leap in miles per intervention, safety critical interventions, the no nag. People who have the no nag say, wow, this is so much better. And of course, once it actually goes out, is going to be a lot of fun as well. So they've got some great releases. They're still on their roadmap so far. They got 2 more weeks to get actually Smart Summon out before they miss the September deadline in their roadmap. But it's a great set of releases. They've done great work creating this software. Now we just want to see it rolled out. And I've heard a rumor that Elon told the team, look, end of the quarter, we're delivering a bunch of these cars. We really want to get this ready before the end of the quarter, before September 30th. We want this to really be pre-installed on every car that gets delivered.
Scope, do you think that's going to happen?
I think there's a very good chance of that, especially with earlier this year, I guess, kind of Omar said, Elon and even Tesla in particular has been very strong on wanting to get the latest builds to freshly delivered vehicles. We saw that with the initial kind of movement onto 12.3.6, where even a lot of the factory builds were including that just right from the start. And also, I kind of took a little look at the update data from my own platform, and it does look like there were a number of vehicles that originated from a factory build that included 12.3.6 that went directly onto 12.5.2.1. A lot of numbers. But that's also a really good sign is that they are saying, hey, you just took delivery of this vehicle. We want you to try out this new build. And I know there's always a lot of frustration felt. Well, I've been testing for a while. Why aren't I prioritized, et cetera, et cetera. And those are very valid sentiments. But since this year, Tesla's really gone hard on kind of a randomized distribution where you could have just got taken delivery, or you could have been on an update for a lot of months and just be able to get chosen. So I think there's a very, very good chance that, especially by the end of the month, we should see a lot of movement. We should at least see. I would even predict that we should see practically every vehicle no longer on 12.3.6. I'm hopeful, and I expect there to be some I guess some push for actual smart summon, but I know for at least at the bare minimum, we shouldn't see 12.3.6 being as prevalent as we do now.
Okay. Yeah, that would be
12.3.6 must die. I said it in a tweet. I'll say it again here. Of course,
I won't
I'm
be
sure they're doing things safely, they're being careful, they're doing it the right way, but we need to see it die.
Yeah.
be,
Um,
before
this
we.
this
Sorry.
is a this is a great discussion. I am loving it. We have such great speakers. If you're on X, please take a moment to repost the space to share with your followers. And if you're on YouTube, please take a moment to like and leave a comment below the video to send it out to new listeners. Thank you very much, everybody. Tesla Scope. Actually, we have hands up. Let's see, Yoda.
Yeah, I just want to point out as we move and advance through the iterations, the negative transfer in terms of the new version performing a little bit worse is very real. In fact, the car's sort of core software update could also impact, I think, the FSD version. I've had a case where I'm on 12.3.6 and I had a update to the car's core software and I sensed that there was regression. But not to worry. This idea of negative transfer, if you kind of use a Jedi example, is sort of like imagine you're learning on fighting using traditional swords. Um, and now all of a sudden, I give you a more advanced technology like a lightsaber. You're going to swing overly hard, right? Because of muscle memory and misjudge the weight. Um, but what do? You just have to practice more on the more powerful weapon. It is indeed more powerful. So I think just to let everyone know that each update isn't, always going to be better than the previous version.
Okay, Tesla Scope. I interrupted. You were saying something.
Oh, I just wanted to kind of discuss the actual Smart Summon kind of like rollout so far. Is it did go out to a very limited number of vehicles, and overall the major positive points were that the activation speed was almost double. It seemed like the speed that it was going through actual parking lots and even some difficult maneuvers was also a lot more confident, especially because it is using the end-to-end infrastructure now, or the architecture. The biggest issue that I want to know if Omar experienced this as well. I don't believe so, based on some of the videos and what I've seen, but of the other a couple of the other testers that did have access, one of the more notable issues was a very sudden, sharp break, and that's something that still happens with the previous version of actual Smart Summon. But I'm assuming that it might have been a little bit too jarring, or even the model might just need a little bit of tweaking to not be as reactive to avoid that. Because if you weren't in the car, I don't think it's that much of an issue. But a couple of the testers who were in like the backseat while testing, when it did do that very sudden break, they did express it being a little bit like too sharp, a little bit too jarring. And a couple times a little bit painful. So I think that's the primary reason why we've seen just that initial push and then kind of nothing since then. Is almost every other aspect of it is completely solid, and even all the testers have said that it behaves and reacts and can handle a lot more kind of maneuvers than it could before. But I think that just that one little tweak is required to make it ready for everyone else to see. So what are your thoughts on it?
Okay, very good. I have a couple other questions for you. If you have any questions for Omar, Tesla Scope, or anybody else on the board, please request to speak. So we don't get you too often. So let me just get these questions out first. FSD on Cybertruck. There are thousands of people now who got their Cybertrucks, and when they purchased it, FSD was embedded in the purchase price, or maybe they had chose a $7,000 FSD to add on there. Obviously, Foundation series have FSD in them, so these people are waiting impatiently. One of them is on the board. Edward, tell us how impatient you are. Go ahead.
Well, it's getting down to the nitty gritty. I mean, I'm taking a road trip about 1,000 miles, and I really need the FSD on the truck for the whole family and safety and everything. So, I think it's super important to have,
Yeah,
just for safety.
yeah. Tesla Scope. There you go. You can feel the passion, the frustration in Edward's voice. He's crying as he says those words behind his phone. Look at that emoji, that crying emoji just he sent. When are we gonna get FSD on Cybertruck?
I think there's a very good chance by the end of this month. I don't think every single Cybertruck is going to get it immediately. But I think we should see an initial wave. And if we absolutely don't, I think we will 100% see something, or at least have some more of an outline to kind of discuss on 1010. But I believe Cybertruck with FSD was mentioned in the September timeline. So, like I said, the AI team has been working really, really hard, especially over the weekends, knowing that everyone is kind of very anxious, very kind of eager to try everything out. So I think with the push of the auto kind of the high fidelity parking assist, and then finally we just saw a couple of vehicles getting the actual auto park. I think there's a lot of momentum behind the scenes, and so we should see something soon. And it's been a long time waiting, but I think with kind of how well the auto parks performed already, utilizing just the cameras, especially the front camera, I think there's a really good chance.
Okay, there you go. Edward, there you go. A few more nights of crying yourself to sleep, and then hopefully you'll have it. Dallas?
Yeah, I guess I wanted to ask Tesla Scope. I think we've talked about this before with Omar, but how much of the feedback does the AI team get from what they're seeing sentiment-wise on X?
So I could tell you with 100% certainty that Tesla practically sees almost, I wouldn't say every single post, but they see so much content, so much post. Doesn't It's not even just from influencers. They see every little minor post in regards to feedback. They still look through the voice notes, even if you're on an older update. There are still a lot of issues that can not necessarily relate to a specific build, but it can relate to a specific area as well, where like the navigation map needs to be tuned a little bit. So they're still listening. I still think that feedback goes a long way. They're not blind to the frustrations of those who are on 12.3.6. I completely agree with Omar's statement that 12.3.6 must die. But I think we're right on the kind of the precipice.
Okay, good. And Adina Porter.
Hey, you guys. I'm backing up my husband on this one. Yes, we do want the FSD when we go down to Florida. However, I do get to drive Ed's FSD on his free, and there's still some things that are not like 100%. And so I wouldn't want like my Cybertruck to experience that because the parts are so limited. So I want to avoid having the, oh my God, jerkiness in the middle of the road and then somebody just rams into me because the car does take a little bit longer to stop or halt um, versus like the Model 3. So just wanted to bring that out, which I'm kind of glad in a way that they are taking their time because it is a much heavier vehicle. Just wanted to throw that out there and thank you
Okay.
for letting me be on. I was in
Thank
between
you.
my breaks and I heard this topic and I was like, oh my God, I got to say something. So thanks.
Thank you very much. There you go, Tezisko. We have Edward and Adina. They are married, and their son also comes in every now and then to this space. So as a family, they want Cybertruck to have FSD. And I
You
gotta tell
realize
it.
that Tyler
Yeah,
isn't in charge of bringing FSD to the
I know,
Cybertruck, right?
but who else am I gonna yell at? Ashak is not here, so I'm just kidding, of course. But being in this space makes me happy. So I want to say a quick word of thank you to our sponsors. This space is sponsored by Joa, your go-to source for premium Tesla accessories. And because you're part of the TSLA Live community, Joa is hooking you up. Use code TSLA Live for a special discount at the checkout. And our second sponsor, Paymore, buys, sells, trades, and recycles electronics because Paymore believes the best technology doesn't have to come at the cost of our planet or your wallet. Join the Paymore revolution. Visit one of their 100 stores near you or visit paymore.com. Both of those links are at the top of your screens. All right. Now, FSD in China. Omar, there's some rumors or a screenshot I saw that FSD is coming to China soon, huh? How about that?
Yeah. Well, we do have the roadmap from the company saying that they are hoping for release in Q1. It's good to see that, there's the necessary. I mean, I would imagine if you're talking about a release in Q1, there's got to be people inside the company testing it. And they have received approval to test it within a limited area, I think of Shanghai or something like that, where their factory is. So it's not surprising that they would be testing it ahead of them obtaining regulatory approval to actually send it to cars in 2025. I would imagine that they will release it using a similar strategy that they've done in the United States. Start with early access to maybe some people who are bloggers or, can post some videos about it, and then expanding to the rest of the customer cars in China as it's validated.
Yeah, man, FSD team has their hands full, rolling out FSD to Hardware 3 cars, rolling out FSD to Cybertruck, rolling out FSD to China. That is the busiest probably that they've ever been.
China, Europe, they're doing the
Yeah.
Cybercab event. I mean, these guys deserve a bonus this year.
Yeah, there you go. Yoda.
Omar, do you think when China saw that they're pitted against Europe for Q1 that they want to beat Europe and potentially go early in back half of Q4?
I have no doubt that FSD will launch in China before Europe. I'll be very surprised if it's the other way around. And the Europeans are starting to take notice of this. They're like, hey, wait a minute. We're kind of falling behind the rest of the world. Maybe there's something off with our regulatory approach here. And I think the first thing they could do to really signal that Europe is changing is allow FSD supervised. Don't be the one, major developed market in the world that doesn't allow it. Modernize.
And when we say Europe, there's obviously many different countries. What does Europe mean in your opinion? Which countries?
Well, in fact, Europe is not just the European continent. When we talk about Europe, really what we're talking about is the UNECE regulations and the countries that adopt these unified regulations, which can be, even Australia or like some other country, right? So, and then I think there's some countries in the European continent that don't quite follow them. So, like Norway or like Sweden or something might be like, I forget which ones they are, but there are some countries that are kind of within the European continent, like Scandinavian countries that maybe kind of have different rules, um, and don't quite follow the same thing. But there's a large block of countries following these UNECE rules. And when you change them, you open up pretty much the entire European continent, as well as other countries like Australia and New Zealand that follow those rules. And they're making a lot of changes, not just for example, system initiated maneuvers, which allows the system to do things like come up with the lane change idea itself, which, without which you can't do FSD, obviously, at least not in the form we have it here in the States. But they're also going to be allowing no nag. So if all of these proposed changes go through, we could really have a situation where it's actually possible from a regulatory perspective to ship the same kind of hands-free FSD supervised you have here in the United States, which would be huge. It would be a massive, massive leap from basic autopilot.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Uzi, welcome. How are you?
I'm good. I just got off a plane in California right now.
Did you tell them to land the plane because you have to attend Tesla Live? Good for you.
Exactly. Actually, I planned my plane around Tesla Live.
There you go. Bitcoin 1776.
Hey there. How you doing? And I have two comments, but first I want to echo Yaman's comment with Tesla Scope. I'm trying to do a road trip in a Dolly Parton themed Cybertruck. And if you could please let us have FSD before the road trip, I would really appreciate that, Tesla Scope. I mean, if
There
you
you
just
go.
get over
The
hate of
guy you
Dolly.
want to bug is called Ashok Elaswamy.
No.
I
I
heard.
heard.
Him some compliments. Say, hey, I like your hair. You're very handsome. Here's my VIN, by the way.
I heard that if you send a DM to Dirty Tesla, you get your FSD right away, even if it's Cybertruck.
You know, I've also heard this too. I did hear that.
Okay. So I had another comment on FSD that I haven't heard people discuss, and this is about the long-term plan, speculation on the long-term plan for FSD with Tesla, which is I have the opinion that Tesla should not sell cars without FSD. But then just to take a different statement to that, let's say you take the Robotaxi statement, and let's say Tesla gets the lion's share of the Robotaxi profits. And so if a Tesla car is allowed to be used as Robotaxi, and let's just for simplistic talk, let's say 20 hours a month, you let your Tesla car be used as a Robotaxi for 20 hours a month. That should create enough profits to Tesla where you could have your monthly subscription of FSD for free. But Tesla, lets your car have FSD because without it, you can't do Robotaxi. So this is just a long-term, more complicated subject that I have not seen anyone address, where like basically Tesla should not allow a car to not be off the Robotaxi network, in my opinion. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you're saying no, you haven't heard anyone addressing it, and it's not surprising that I haven't seen you around because we've been talking about this literally for 2 years. Omar, do you want to say anything?
Well, if you were to not allow people to buy cars without FSD and raise the price $8,000, you'd make the cars more expensive and less people would buy them. On top of that, you then actually have the ability, you lose the ability to monetize the Robotaxi fleet as well because they've already paid for an unlimited use license for the vehicle. The cars have all the hardware on them, so any car can be added to the Robotaxi network, whether it buys FSD or not. And the cars come with the free version. So that's kind of the goal right now, is just make the cars as cheap as possible and then charge, $99 for subscription. All of them will be able to join the Robotaxi network, whether they have FSD purchased or not.
Okay. And
Edward, we have other hands. Sorry, Edward.
Yeah, I just want to say I agree with that, but I just think they're more likely to get rid of the purchase option in general. Just go to the subscription only period. There's no reason to have to tack it on and make the car more expensive and put that into financing anyway. It's just the subscription model they can adjust to. Once you buy it for 7,000, you see, and then they raised it to 15, you're just pissing off people. So I mean, just make it a number and then you can change that. It's not going to upset the populace.
Okay. Bitcoin, did you have anything else to say?
Okay, yes. And then so let's just take this scenario. Say a car that someone they let them use it for the Robotaxi network, and they let Tesla use it, 40 hours a week or whatever, and Tesla ends up getting a residual profit of, like, just for simple talk, they get a residual profit of $200 a month that goes to Tesla corporate as their share of this Robotaxi. Now, but then take another scenario where a person doesn't let them use the Tesla car, and now Tesla's getting zero residual profits other than the sale of the car, but they get zero residual profits for this person owning this car. So basically, I think Tesla will have to take extreme steps to basically ensure people are letting their car be used for Robotaxi, which what Edward was suggesting, just making it subscription only, I think is quite likely. Basically saying that you have to allow your car to be used for Robotaxi. Otherwise, you can't have FSD other than the people who've already purchased it.
Omar? Or Tesla Scope?
I mean, yeah. Go ahead, Tesla Scope.
So I think there was at one point, I forget now if it was in an interview, if it was on the very first autonomy days. I think Elon had said that there was a long-term goal for Tesla to no longer sell cars, and I don't know if they're still kind of following that route, or if it's kind of changed a little bit. But I think there still is the intention, especially with the 1010 kind of the unveil of the Robotaxi. We've seen like one single. We've seen obviously a lot of the renders, but we also seen what was a kind of a covered up vehicle being tested. I think Tesla's going to have their own fleet, and that's going to obviously they're going to run it themselves. Then it doesn't really matter too much to those who are going to be adding their own vehicles to the actual Robotaxi fleet. So Tesla already is already going to have their primary source of revenue, because obviously they don't have to split any of that with any owners. And I think that there's a benefit and a positive is something positive to add your vehicle to the overall fleet, but I don't think it will ever be required, especially because you purchase this vehicle, this very expensive vehicle, whether or not you've purchased FSD or not. And any forced or requirement to say, okay, well, from this hour to this hour, even though you own this vehicle, it's not actually going to be your property anymore. It's going to be off taking rides. That probably won't fly with everyone, especially if you need that vehicle for emergency purposes. If you're and you need to drive to the ER or take someone at your house, and all of a sudden your vehicle's out doing robotaxi because you didn't really have a say or not, that's not that could end up being a lot more logistical problems, essentially, that I think it would allow for a situation where they would force it upon people, even if the subscription is the only option.
Omar? Omar, anything to
Yeah,
add?
I just think so in the future, nobody's going to sell any car that doesn't drive itself. It's going to be like going to Best Buy and saying, "Hey, give me your best black and white TV." What black and white TVs do you have? Well, we don't have any. You have to pick a color one. So in the future, all cars are going to be self-driving. You won't be able to buy a manually driven Tesla or any other car brand for that matter. But, in the meantime, this is a business, right? So this is a business that is an endurance business, because autonomy is such a hard task and we're not anywhere close to getting to the finish line, that you really have to make sure that the business can survive, that it can be profitable. So in a business, you want to match up revenue to expenses. So when we sell someone a car, we have certain costs to make the car. Let's say it costs 36,000 to make the car. We sell it to that guy for, let's say, $45,000, and we cover our costs and we make 10,000 in profit, and that's done with, right? Now the car has certain ongoing expenses, such as data and that type of stuff. That's covered by premium connectivity. But generally, all the costs of making the car are covered by the revenue that the customer has. Now, FSD is different. FSD needs to be built and maintained. New models need to be trained. They need to be validated. You need to have, the maps fixed. There's all this stuff that needs to be done on an ongoing basis every month, right? You're not done with it. So the revenue for FSD needs to be matched up with the cost structure, which is recurring. So that's why they're now having everyone do subscriptions. So for people who just want to buy a car once and not have to deal with an extra monthly fee, you can buy FSD for $8,000. That's essentially giving you subscriptions for the life of the car. But in order to make the business successful today, they need to match up, revenue and costs. Now, you could say, well, hey, what if they just included FSD for free on every car and raised the price like $2,000? They'd probably have more revenue. And, maybe there is some wisdom to that, but then you're kind of just getting the revenue one time. You're much more prone to the cyclicality of the auto market and stuff like that. So the key is just to try and make this business work. They have to invest billions. You want to generate recurring cash flows to match that. Long term, absolutely, I think it will just be standard on every car.
Okay, good. Uzi.
I think it's the government's role to mandate if FSD is warranted on every car. Maybe a company can do that. I just think you want to attract people to the service for the time being.
Look at the dedication of this guy. amazing. Uzi steps off the airplane. As soon as the airplane lands, he turns on his phone and he doesn't check dating apps. He immediately logs on to TSLA Live to join as he's waiting for his plane to dock. Great. Awesome. Any other views on this topic? Please request to speak or raise your hand. Robert, welcome. How are you?
Doing great. I didn't even think I was the speaker. I was just listening. Great show.
Surprise. Are you going to come tonight?
No, I will be on your show tonight. Yes.
Okay, perfect. 8 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Central for AI amateurs. Okay, great.
I just did a 1,800-mile road trip from San Jose to Salt Lake City, to Sun Valley, Idaho, and FSD sure is a lifesaver on such a long trip.
Do you have 12.3.6 or 12.5?
12.5 on our Y. I took my older Model 3 to Sun Valley though, and so I have the older version. Which
Okay.
It's definitely not as smooth. Omar is absolutely right on. The new version is so nice.
Wait, the 12.5 is on which Tesla?
The Model Y. We have a brand new Model Y, and it has the latest build.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, it's really smooth.
If you don't mind sharing,
hands free, right? No hands.
Yeah,
I had to touch the wheel for 17 hours or the 13 hours of driving yesterday.
How come you went with that Model Y?
That's my wife's car. I got to take my car.
Gotcha. Okay, Dallas.
Yeah, I've got a question as for the summon feature we were talking about earlier. Is that okay?
Yes, of course. Go ahead.
So do we see regular updates being done to just that feature by itself? Like, will they be pushing individual updates for that, or will it just naturally improve as the version 12 neural approach improves? Like, is it just something that will now just improve with FSD in general?
Great question, Omar or Tezoscope.
It is using the FSD stack now. Previously, Smart Summon was using a separate, much older, much more primitive stack. So improvements to the core FSD model will also improve Smart Summon.
Yeah, I would agree with that. With the previous Smart Summon, it technically received about 3 or 4 minor updates, but they weren't notated with any version or so forth. So I think, as Omar said, with FSD updates, we should see little iterations of updates and improvements.
Dallas.
Yeah, I also wanted to just take 10 seconds and say thank you to Tesoscope and Hold Mars, just because those are the two accounts I get most of my news from on FSD stuff, and there's a lot of FUD out there. So thank you for the hard work that you guys do. Obviously, you as well, Yaman. So just want to say that.
That's awesome. Really cool. By the way, we have a reply from Robert Lopinto, who says everyone is mispronouncing Ashok's name. It is Ashok. Rhymes with choke, not a shock. Okay, so Ashok. All right, is that true, Omar? Are we mispronouncing?
I don't know.
What do you mean?
I think that sounds right. Ashok. I mean,
have you not met him?
You're never like Indian people don't care that you can't say their name exactly correctly. We're just like, yeah, okay, just call me George or whatever, Like
that's what I say.
I mean, yeah, I don't think. I mean, yeah, it is good to say his name correctly, but obviously, when you're talking in English, there's going to be some differences.
Yeah, he also says, "Don't take my word for it." So after all that, there he is.
I mean, he's said his own name, so you can hear him at the Tech Talk saying his own name.
Yeah, I should go check. Okay, Robert Lopinto.
Hi, I posted a video of Ashok pronouncing his own name. First few seconds of that video, he's pronouncing his name. And I work with folks from India. I have a development team in India of 30 developers, and they do care when you mispronounce their name. They may not say it or they're shy about it, but they do care. We should strive to pronounce everyone's name correctly.
Okay, cool. Ashok. All right. Can you spell the last name for us too?
Elaswamy. Nobody's.
Elaswamy.
It's funny. Nobody is mispronouncing his last name, which looks more challenging, but everyone seems to mess up the first name.
Okay, cool. That's all right. Okay, we got it now. Ashok. All right. I'll probably do it again, but let's see. 4680 news. So we talked about FSD, talked about macro. 4680, Omar, there was a tweet, I believe, recent with Optimus holding a cell. What'd you make of it?
Yeah, it was interesting to see Optimus's hands. I wonder if these are the new hands that they were talking about. They do seem to be a little more refined, or maybe it's just more of an up close shot. We did have someone from the bot team saying, hey, Optimus played a very small part in this. Of course, Optimus takes the cells off the line and puts them into a container. So that's a very small part it played. But yeah, 100 million 4680 cells. It's not a small number. I mean, it's only about enough for 76,000 Cybertrucks. So it's not, we need a lot more. We really need billions of 4680 cells, right? There's thousands of cells in each Cybertruck. So we really need, continued ramp up from Tesla and from their suppliers. But what's interesting is that the 4680 ramp up continues to outpace Cybertruck General Assembly. So for people who are saying that, okay, 4680 is the limiting factor, it appears that 4680 is not yet the limiting factor. The limiting factor appears to be just the general production of the truck, which is possibly just limited by, the fact that they're only producing the $100,000 version. But whatever the holdup is in the ramp, the limiting factor doesn't seem to be the 4680 cells, which is actually contrary to what a lot of informed people expected going into this ramp.
Yeah, we have one of them in the audience, Machine, long held the belief that 4680 was a limiting factor, and it turns out maybe it's not. So maybe he can come up to speaker board and defend his thoughts. Yoda?
Is the Robotaxi gonna share 4680 with Cybertruck, and is that why the volume is much greater than what the Cybertruck program needs?
Omar?
At Tesla's Investor Day presentation, they said that their next gen platform, which the Cybercab is built on, would be able to support any battery architecture. So presumably you'd be able to build it with the 4680 structural pack, LFP, etc. I would guess that the Cybercab is going to be using LFP batteries primarily.
Thank you. Edward?
Yeah, I was wondering if anybody on the board knew how many 4680s are in the Cybertruck exactly. I was trying to run some calculations on like the 100 million and where they're splitting it to the vehicles, but I don't know how many they're having in the vehicles.
Does anyone on the board know how many 4680s in the Cybertruck battery?
1,344.
There you go, Edward. Dallas?
Yeah, a dumb question, but is the 4680 cell the only cell that Tesla is manufacturing in-house?
Yes, it's the only cell they're manufacturing themselves. They also have a joint venture with Panasonic in Nevada, where Panasonic produces the cells and they put them into battery packs.
Okay, good. And thank you to those replying with the information Edward asked as well. Continuous Learner says 1,344 4680s. Bitcoin says 123 kilowatt hours in Cyberpack. All right. Any other questions, comments? 4680. All right. Let's talk some Q3 production delivery estimates, Omar. What we have only a couple weeks left now. We're very, very close. 2 weeks left to the end of the quarter. Do you think it's going to be a record deliveries quarter? Tesla's introducing zero down as well. That's the first in Tesla's history, I believe. And sub-vetted loan rates. But on the other hand, China macroeconomy seems to be doing not so hot. Europe isn't doing too hot from a macro perspective, but Tesla China seems to be breaking records. So a lot of moving variables. How do you kind of bring them all together in your head?
I think we've got a record Q3 for sure. It's going to be way bigger than last year's Q3. In terms of a record quarter, beating 484,000, it's in the cards with this $0 down rate, with this release of FSD, with the strength you're seeing in Tesla China, where frankly the Chinese consumer has just learned that most of these other EVs suck and they have various problems, and that Tesla's one of the best, highest quality choices you can get. And that's why they've done so well despite the extreme competitiveness of the Chinese market. So I think definitely best Q3 ever. They'll probably fall a little bit short of being the best quarter ever. So I guess that would put them, somewhere between 450,000 to 485,000, somewhere in that range would be my best guess. But you're really seeing sales suppressed to some extent, especially in markets like the US and Europe, by the liquidation of legacy auto EV inventories. These EVs are being given incentives of as much as $20,000 in some cases. They've all had $0 down, walk away with $0 due at signing for months now. So in many ways, Tesla, these offers they're doing are not even competitive with what the legacy auto EVs are offering. Now, obviously, despite that, Tesla continues to sell as much as everyone else combined, but it is an environment that is a little challenging. Nevertheless, it will be good to say that, hey, we have year over year growth from Q3 last year, and China's going to be a big part of that story.
Can you guys hear me? All right. I had a connection issue. Okay, great. So you expect the record Q3, but we're not sure if it's going to be a record quarter just yet. We'll see. Last 2 weeks are very important, obviously. I'm watching data closely. I'm about to publish my Tesla Weekly to my patrons. And I think Model 3 sales are doing really well. But the Model Y, there's multiple reasons why it may be challenged a little bit. So we'll see. We'll see. And we'll see also how the earlier conversation about macroeconomics, whether the Fed is going to cut 25 or 50, and the subsequent press conference and the subsequent market reaction, maybe that will have some impact on as well. I mean, another moving piece here is the oil prices are plunging, gasoline prices are plunging. I think that may also have a bit of a near-term impact on sales as well. Tesla Scope, do you have anything to add on Q3 production deliveries?
I'd say that this year in general, we've seen a lot of interest in the new Model 3, the redesigned Model 3. I don't think there's too much impact yet with the kind of the redesigned Model Y that we're not going to see until tentatively next year. I think delivery numbers are still looking good. I don't have any precise numbers, as I don't track that too much, but I think that I myself have known 3 friends who finally pulled the trigger and purchased a Model 3 or Model 3 Highland just because of the upgrades. So I think there's a kind of a newfound interest, especially for those who are either new or existing owners.
Have you ever heard of anyone choosing the new Model 3 over the Model Y?
Yeah, so obviously when I got
Like
my Model 3,
in this sense that they would have bought a Model Y if it wasn't for the Model 3 update.
I think the Model Y still remains the most popular vehicle, but for me personally, like I have always loved sedans. I know the Model Y is kind of a little bit of a in between, but I think there's still those who just want a sedan, who want that little bit of a sportsier feel, where the Model 3 kind of speaks more to them.
even though the benefits of the Model Y comparatively.
Okay, cool. All right, so that covers. Any other comments on Q3 production and deliveries from the board? Please request to speak. I see Petio coming up. Yoda?
Yeah, let's keep a very close eye on this week's numbers coming out of China. I think if you talk about sort of the fiscal weeks, last week, week 36, this is where they reached and exceeded for the first time last year's number. So we're at 408,000. The problem is really the lunar fest that's going on this week. And so last year they did 8,500, and it'll be very interesting to see what numbers they turn out. I think it will come out tomorrow.
Thank you. We'll discuss that in tomorrow's Tesla Live as well. Thanks for bringing that to our attention. Ipatio.
Hey, can you hear me okay?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, because you just mentioned or asked if there is any case of someone choosing the new Model 3 over Model Y. Well, that was exactly my case. And for me, the reason was mainly, first of all, I didn't really need that big a car. And secondly, because of all the newer tech that you see in Model 3.
Thank you very much. Yeah, I'm watching that factor pretty closely too, because obviously Model Y is the most popular vehicle, but that may have a bit of a kind of impact on Model Y sales in the near term. Dallas.
Yeah, I want to piggyback off that. If you haven't gotten the opportunity to sit in the new Model 3 platform, it's mind blowing. Like, it's the biggest step change they've made for a trim update or a refresh. I mean, it's an unbelievable car.
Okay, good. We'll see when those updates come to Model Y. We don't know exactly when, whether later this year, early next year, maybe later next year, who knows. Tesla China, however, to Yoda's point, Tesla China is doing really, really well. I mean, we're going to get this last week's update tomorrow morning, but that's despite the horrible macro situation that's going on in China right now. China is seeing a very slow growth rate. Their population is also growing very slowly. There's deflation in the country. And despite that, Tesla China has been putting out for really good weak numbers now for several weeks in a row. Omar, what do you think is driving Tesla's success in China despite the horrible macro situation and very intense competition?
To be honest, I have no idea. I think a lot of these products that flooded the market, I think you had over, 90 different EV brands. I mean, even Evergrande, the failed, now bankrupt property developer, they had an EV subsidiary. So everybody was really making EVs, and you had a lot of low cost EVs from BYD and others. I think you had kind of a explosion of these brands, and then things kind of came down to earth. In reality, it's hard to make a car. A lot of these people had issues, they had problems. A lot of these companies just simply died out because they didn't have enough sales. And I think over time, as you're seeing in China, and I think as you're going to see in the United States, as consumers try all the options on the market and talk to each other, they find that Tesla is the best inside and out. And I think that's why they've done so well in the Chinese market. It's really, really unusual for a foreign brand to do that well. But they've done a really great job, the Tesla China team, in really integrating with the Chinese market. The one thing that I do look at as the turning point where all of this started changing was when they sent Tom Zhu back. And instantly you saw a huge change. So I don't know what he's doing, but he's doing good.
Very good. That's a good point. We haven't talked about that before. When was that? Do you remember? When did he go back? I remember, and some people interpret it as a demotion, but look at the change.
They did a reorganization of the company. This involved, getting rid of the head of the charging team, so on and so forth. And frankly, Tesla's been executing very strongly since that reorganization. I don't think it was a demotion. I think it was just, hey, China is important to us, and we need to really focus on this market. And who better to do that than Tom?
Great. Yoda?
Yeah, I think what's happening in China is the what's often referred to as the M-shaped economy, where the economic structure shows this idea of the deepening of inequalities, where the middle class is split, um, and it shrinks in population, being polarized into the wealthier part of the middle class, now becoming upper class, and then the lower income segment. And so, what's happening with the M-shaped economy as it affects EV sales um, is that the higher income segment are still able more than ever to buy these premium EVs, whether it's from Tesla, from Neo, international brands, of course. This segment is drawn to having the best, right? Features like FSD, the best performance, the brand prestige. The lower incomes are buying the BYDs. They're looking for cost efficiency, lower price EVs. And so I think this is why it's very difficult to look at China and say the aggregate number of GDP or the economy is stagnant, because really what's happening is that that average is driven by these two peaks on the end.
Thank you, Yoda. Any other comments about Tesla China? Please request to speak or raise your hand. Or hold your silence forever. Tesla Scope.
This is less to do with the kind of economics and delivery numbers, but Tesla vehicles in China did get a new safety feature that we haven't seen in Europe or in North America yet. Just in the last 2024.26.6 update, I believe, where essentially it is the vehicle's cameras are looking, paying attention to all the pedestrians that are very close to the vehicle, including other objects. And so if you park your car and you're about to open your door, the second that you open your door, if it detects any, it could be like a bicyclist or a pedestrian that's walking by very close to the vehicle where you opening your door might end up hitting them, or even they might end up colliding with your door. It flashes the emergency lights, and it also gives a little bit of an auditorial or an auditory chime to inform any of the passenger doors or the driver that something might be hitting their vehicle or so forth. Just kind of come to pay attention. There's a lot more kind of pedestrians and small bikes and so forth in that region. So that's still something that we might see expand out elsewhere. But just an example of just continuous improvements for safety, starting in China and expanding out.
Okay, wonderful. I want to stick. There's so many things we can talk about, but I want to stick with Tesla. Omar, go ahead.
I just want to say, I think Tesla has a shot at being the number one EV brand in China. Right now, they're number two behind BYD in NEVs. So there's a couple things in the pipeline that I think gives Tesla a shot at the number one spot, which would be insane for a foreign company to be number one in China. You don't see things like that in the Chinese market. So the reason why is number one, the new Model Y. The Chinese consumer smart, even the California, the American consumer smart. They know the Model Y is coming, an updated one with some of the things the 3 has and more. And people are waiting for that. So you're seeing Model Y sales suppressed a little bit. Then you've got these newer, more affordable models. They're supposed to be cheaper than the Model 3 and Y, maybe a Model Y Mini. You look at the success BYD has had in this segment, it's clear there is huge demand for a lower cost, smaller Tesla in China. In the segments Tesla competes in, they dominate. If they enter that segment, a smaller, lower cost car, I think they're going to do extremely well in that segment as well. And then finally, FSD. If you have FSD really coming in Q1 or even in 2025 in general, Chinese consumers are way more tech forward. Chinese streets are actually really well mapped in many cases and really well marked. And a lot of Chinese people who are buying EVs are actually first time drivers. We don't really have that as much here in the United States. But a lot of them are getting a car for the first time. And they're not really as comfortable driving. Something like FSD is huge for them. They care a lot more about this stuff. And I think that also is going to really differentiate Tesla in the very competitive Chinese market. So when you look at lower cost cars, FSD, as well as some of the updates to the existing products, they could be number one. They have a shot at it.
Very good. And Elon said as much, right? A few weeks ago, he tweeted, if BYD doesn't change course soon, they're in trouble. All right.
Yeah, they're now more hybrids than gas cars. For a portion last year in Q4, they did actually make more BEVs than hybrids. But now I think they're about 60-40 hybrids, gas cars. They're actually 38% EV, and the rest is gas cars now. Or sorry, hybrids, plug-in hybrids.
That's right. They looked like they were becoming more of an EV producer, but then they switched to producing more hybrids. Or
Like
ICE,
everyone else, they realized that it is hard and expensive to make an EV. It's far more easy to make money if you're making hybrids.
Exactly. And as we like to say in Tesla Live, if it has an engine, it is not an EV. Omar, people are asking about 1010 in live chats, in here, in my replies, and I go to other spaces under the macro analyst account, and I want to talk macro under the account, but they ask me about Tesla, and they specifically ask about 1010 events. What will Tesla announce on 1010? What should I tell them?
Well, I mean, not to overhype it, but this is going to be the most important product unveil since Tesla showed off the Model 3. And the Model 3 obviously changed the entire car industry. You know how you now have EVs from every brand. And they're piling up in inventory and actually being sold at massive discounts that have reached sticker price parity with ICE. So that moment of the Model 3 and the Model 3 becoming profitable, it convinced the whole industry to change. The impact of this is going to be bigger. This is their vision for a car without steering wheels and pedals. And it's absolutely not insane to be producing something like this. Waymo has one, Cruise has one. Tesla is actually not even the first to unveil one. And by the time they get it into production, the software is going to be long since ready to actually handle real rideshare rides. And they're going to need a vehicle like this to serve as the backbone of that ride hail market. So they're definitely going to show off the Cybercab. We know that for sure. We may see some of their other vehicles unveiled as well. We know that they're working on a Roadster. We know that they're working on cheaper models that are going to be built on the Model 3 and Y line that are going to start in production in the first half of 2025. Maybe they'll show us some of those things as well. And the most important part is they're going to be giving demo rides in the Cybercab. So for the first time, we'll have people posting videos from the back of the Tesla without a wheel, with the car doing all the driving. Granted, it's on a studio lot, but that will be good to be able to say, there's my first driverless Tesla ride, and see it expand from there. So it's a big, big moment. They've been working towards this for a long time. And honestly, we haven't seen a new vehicle unveil since the Cybertruck in 2019. So during the pandemic, they kind of put off all new vehicle programs. They put them all on hold and just focused on ramping the 3 and Y like crazy. And that propelled them to be a company that sells cars in the millions of units consistently. But people are now saying, well, these cars haven't really changed that much. They haven't really had a new vehicle since 2019. Of course, they're updating all them all the time, but I think we're now entering an era of new Tesla vehicles coming to the market again and them expanding the TAM. There are a lot of segments where there just isn't a great EV still. And you saw Tesla show that product roadmap at their last shareholder meeting with several vehicles under the cover, 2 or 3 vehicles under the cover. Well, we're definitely getting the cover pulled off in at least one of them, the Cybercab. But I wouldn't be surprised if there's some hints at the other ones too.
Very good. Ipatio.
Yeah, I just want to say I fully agree with Holmars. The only thing I wanted to add is what I said before. I believe that the new cheaper model will be practically identical to the Robotaxi, and it will be also unveiled on the same date. And you can see that also in the sketch that we had with the covered vehicles. The two are identical, but they're both on every end of that picture. It's like the one is very different use from the other, but they are still identical. That is what I wanted to add. Thanks.
Thank you, Patio. Man, I can tell from all the viewership stats right now, this is what people want to talk about. 1010, robotaxis, cybercabs. Really exciting topic for people. I think this event is going to be extremely positive and extremely popular, probably around the world. And I'm excited for it. I don't know what kind of impact it's going to have on the stock price, but that's kind of besides the point, as the topic of this space is long-term fundamentals. All right. Great. Anything else? Tesla Scope, anything you'd like to add to that?
Yeah, I think that especially if they are doing drives, to just pay attention to what the screen looks like, what's the visualizations, see if you're able to see kind of like the software tab, if it is designed similarly to the current Tesla OS. And I think that there's a lot that's going to be previewed that will kind of give us a glimpse of what the next, it's even the next 6 months, even the next year and a half are going to look like. So a lot of interesting, exciting things are going to be happening on 1010. And I would say that you should dedicate that day or the time that any live stream is going to be to make sure that you're watching, because it's going to be very, very, very exciting.
Very good. I will probably have a special episode during that event. We'll see. Bitcoin, go ahead.
So I just had a thought on the RoboCab, and most of the designs I've seen have been it where it looks like a car, and then when I see that yellow thing, it looks like a truck. So what do you think if the Robotaxi is like the Tesla minivan, and it autonomously delivers your food and your groceries to you, and it's not just a cabbie like I've been expecting?
Omar?
Yeah, I'm not really sure what to expect. I think it's going to be kind of out there. It's not just going to be some regular vehicle. Um, the leak that we saw with that yellow thing does kind of look like a truck, but it's hard to know what it really is. That would certainly be a surprise. So, I mean, your guess is as good as mine, but luckily we're less than 30 days away now.
I think storage and be able to transport like luggage and other objects, even if you're saying, okay, I'm going to take the cyber or the robotaxi to the grocery store and be able to drop off of, but several bags of groceries to take you back home with. I think that's still something that we might see in why it's a bigger vehicle, but I still think that they're probably messing with the shape a lot to make it so you can't really determine exactly what you're looking at. So it's we might see more things before that happens, before 1010, but I think it's kind of anyone's guess.
Bitcoin, is this the first time you're coming up to speak? Is this the first time, first day you're in Tesla Live as a speaker?
Yes, that's right.
Okay. When do you expect wide adoption of robotaxi service, Tesla's robotaxi service?
For me, So I think it'll be much faster than people believe because it's very profitable to cities like San Francisco, New York, LA. When it comes to rural areas, I don't think it's that big of a deal to adopt it. So I think you'll see it adopted in cities, possibly in 6 months. Waymo's already quite popular. I don't know why Tesla FSD won't be, but rural areas, like probably a year or two. But for all crowded cities, it'll be much, much faster.
Do you think it's going to be first Cybercab, or is going to start with the existing Tesla fleet?
So and this was an idea that just occurred to me at listening to you guys, but if you take the idea that the Cybercab is also a grocery delivery vehicle where it can drive without people in it, then I think it would be Cybercab first, because that just lowers Tesla's liability without having anybody in the car, but it's still driving autonomously and earning money.
Okay, thank you. Omar, what do you think about that idea?
Yeah, I agree with Tesla Scope and him that being able to carry cargo around is probably an important piece, even if it's like a 2-passenger robo taxi. Like we said, having a large storage area might make sense and make it a lot more useful.
Okay. And what about his 6-month timeline for cities?
Seems a little aggressive to me. I mean, obviously Tesla's using a pure vision approach, which is actually resulting in much more lifelike driving than Waymo. It is working across a wider area, but we still haven't seen, at least on customer cars, it get anywhere close to the level of reliability needed to actually launch a robotaxi service. Now, I'd love to see that happen in 6 months. I definitely don't think it's impossible that it happens in 6 months, but I mean, we'd start to see them file for permits and see a lot of movement 6 months before a service went live.
Thank you. Tesla Scope?
Yeah, I'd also agree with. I think the 6 months is a little aggressive. Now, it's very easy, and from outward appearances, it always looks like the NHTSA and even like the California DMV has been a little bit mean to Tesla, but Tesla's also gotten clearances for a lot of things significantly faster than a lot of other OEMs. Those agencies are willing and interested in working with Tesla. And so I think that once there is something presentable, once Tesla has obviously showed off what they want to on 1010, I think those conversations, if they're not already happening, are going to be happening very soon. Notably because they already have been having so many conversations with other regulators in other countries like the UN, ESC, and UNC. I'm butchering the abbreviation, but yeah, I think there's some chance of that, but I think if the very least we'll see some preview of it within the next 6 months, not necessarily wide rollout.
All right. And Matt Senko in YouTube live chat says, a new model with new physics and camera placement will need to train for FSD before removing wheel and pedals. Remember that the Cybertruck still has no FSD. Tesla Scope?
So we've seen not necessarily leaks, but we've seen vehicles running in public where they've had extra cameras positioned in very odd positions on a Model 3 base. We've seen a Model 3 with almost looks like a kind of duct taped camera on the front. We've seen them where half of the window has been taken up with a kind of a black box with a camera. So Tesla has been testing and has had vehicles out on public roads, kind of testing and utilizing different positions for those cameras. So I think on a wide aspect of obviously having multiple of those vehicles out getting data, that's still obviously hasn't happened yet. But I think Tesla already has an idea. They've already been testing the kind of the ideal positioning, especially if the camera position is any different than the smaller vehicles. There's other parameters that regards the Cybertruck from why FSD hasn't been out yet. But as for the camera placement, it was very quick from when the Model 3 went to the Model Y when we first started seeing the first autopilot and navigated autopilot features. So I think Yes, that's a very good point, and I definitely would pay attention to it. But I don't think we'll see as long of a wait as we have with the Cybertruck. I think there's been too many things in motion for that to take as long as it has.
Okay. Well, we have a debate in our hands. If Matt Sanko wants to come up with speaker board, he's welcome to do so, or he can respond in live chat. Omar, what do you think about that?
Well, Cybertruck FSD exists. It just sucks too much for them to release it. You know, you can see Cybertrucks driving outside Chuck Cook's house, making a left turn. It'll probably be out within the next couple weeks, but there was a lot of new tech on there. You know, new camera placement, front bumper camera, the steer by wire, things like that. A conventional vehicle, once they've added support, even adding support for another steer by wire vehicle, I don't think should take as long.
Okay. Interesting. You know, we just had our favorite barely Ivy League graduate come up to speaker board, but then he got scared of all the quality speakers on the board and he just dropped down to listen to more. JC, how you doing over there?
Hey, Yaman, what's up, brother?
Everything good? FSD doing well for you? You like your new Model 3?
Love the new Model 3. FSD's been doing great. I'm still on 12.3.6. I'm pretty sure the reason they've got me on 12.3.6 is they love my FSD music videos so much and they don't want to screw those up. So they're just going to wait to make sure it's all nice and tidy because they want those Metallica videos and Leonard Skinner videos to keep coming out. So that's what I think's going on.
Okay, thank you. Good to have you on the board again. All right, Omar, let's touch on. So we have about half hour to go. Obviously, we have AI amateurs tonight at 8 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Central, 5 p.m. Pacific. I recommend everyone join that. We have a lot to talk about today on AI amateurs. And please be on time, 8 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Central, and 5 p.m. Pacific. Yoda?
Yeah, I got a question for Omar. What do you say to Bears who says, sure, Tesla is going to solve FSD, but there's no profit in it. The only company that's going to make a profit, like in the LLM world, is NVIDIA. Why do you think the profits of FSD won't get cut away?
Well, I mean, the Bears obviously said autonomy is impossible. It'll never work. It'll require AGI. Now we have autonomy and people are taking driverless cars and they're saying, well, no one's ever going to make any money on it. Yes, it's true. Nobody has made any money yet, but that's where Tesla comes in. They've pioneered an approach that scales. The unit economics are completely different than anything else we've ever seen in the industry. Tesla's going to be the company that makes money on it. And I think, so many people don't know how to follow the autonomy race. They, I've used Waymo, I've used Cruised, I've used Tesla FSD, I've used Super Cruise, Blue Cruise, I've used all of it. Tesla FSD is the most advanced system in the world. It can do things for me that other systems can't do. My dad went and dropped his car off at the airport. He asked me to go pick it up. My Tesla drove me from my house, drove out of the driveway with actually Smart Summon, drove me to LAX to the parking lot. I didn't touch one thing. Okay. Waymo can't do that. Nobody else can do that. It's going to be years before any other car I can buy can do what my car has been doing for months and years. And most people don't realize this. They look at a race. Imagine if you were watching a marathon. You don't say who won based on who started first. The winner is who finishes first, right? So a lot of people see, oh my God, oh, well, Waymo launched a service. Okay, the race is over. Really, the race is over. Well, do you still see people buying cars? As long as people are still buying cars, the race isn't over. It has just started. We're looking at a transition unfolding where transportation as we know it is going to change. People are not going to buy cars anymore. They're going to use these services. They're going to subscribe to cars if they want to keep them. There's going to be entirely new business models here. So where is the finish line? The finish line is when you can deliver a software that is truly intelligent, that knows how to drive, not because the area is mapped, but because it has intelligence. It can look at a scene, it can understand things. It can say, oh, that guy, that kid dropped his backpack. He's probably going to turn around and pick it up. Things like that it has background context of the world. And that you can deliver this at scale at a price that is better than the alternative, right? So not only do you have to have it reliable and work anywhere without geofences, you need to be able to do that at a price that's less than the cost of buying your own car and driving your own car. Because you can have a driverless service like Waymo, and if it can't go anywhere, if it can't go everywhere, and if it's still more expensive than driving your own car, which it is by a lot, and they're underpricing it compared to what their cost actually is, then you're not actually going to be able to replace driving. People say, sure, that's great, but I'm still going to drive myself because it's cheaper. So you need to be better than the person driving themselves. You need to be cheaper, and you need to scale. And the approach that Waymo's taken has been really great at getting to a working driverless service first, but it's not great for scaling. And that's why you're seeing them do this deal with Uber now, where in the new cities they're doing, Austin and Atlanta, they're not going to do their own Waymo app. They're going to have it exclusively on Uber's app in exchange for Uber maintaining the fleet and servicing them and charging them and all that garbage that they don't want to do. So they're really starting to realize, okay, if we want to scale, the model of just owning our own fleet is never going to be competitive. Tesla is really the only company in the real play for getting to the finish line here, not just off the starting line.
Thanks so much. Robert?
Yeah, when Uber was started in a Paris snowstorm, it was 3 years before it got to a slum in South Africa, and that's the bar for me that I think Tesla should aim at beating, becoming a worldwide service that people use at a lot of places in less than 3 years seems like a reasonable goal. Now, when does it start? I think it's still about 18 months before before my Tesla can really drive around town without a human in it. So 18 months to start, 3 more years to go mainstream.
18 months to start, 3 more years to go mainstream. Thanks, Robert. Robert is also a very valuable speaker of our AI Amateurs space tonight at 8 p.m., 7 p.m. Central, 8 p.m. Eastern. We're going to talk about the ChatGPT version that just came out, O1. Maybe talk about some Apple a little bit too. Also, Figure AI, Brad Adcock put out a thread. Maybe I want to hear Omar's thoughts on that thread. But for now, stick it to Tesla. Ram Garuda, you may unmute yourself and go ahead.
Hey guys, thanks for the chance. I think this is the first ever live event I have joined. I have always been listening on mute, but I'm a very frustrated Tesla fan because I have a hardware 3 Model 3 and been stuck at 12.3.6 ever since. And I've been asking questions on X for many times, but I don't get any answers. Why are they delaying this? What is happening in the background? And why did they overnight change from developing the software from hardware 3 and moved on to hardware 4 for optimization? We have been there for years, and the softwares are built because of our videos. And now they're just ditching the hardware 3 and optimizing for hardware 4. It seems to me like they're pushing us to buy new cars, right? And we don't have everybody doesn't have deep pockets. So I want to ask the experts and fans here, how is it fair?
Okay, Omar.
Well, there's been a lot of misinformation designed to confuse people and make people angry. As of today, both Hardware 3 and Hardware 4 can run the latest model, and in my testing, they run them with equivalent performance. So there's no need to get a new car. Your Hardware 3 will run the latest software perfectly.
Does this scope anything to add?
Yeah, just last night, Hardware 3 vehicles received the very latest update. So it's not even been it's been a long time waiting, but those updates are finally rolling out. And Tesla, yes, there is a lot of focus on Hardware 4, but Hardware 3 is far from forgotten. It's still going to be getting updates for years. And I know it can be completely frustrating to see a lot of other vehicles getting an update when you haven't. I think there's improvements that Tesla can make. At least all people are asking is communication. If things can take longer, updates cannot necessarily go out to everyone. I think a little bit of communication, and they've been kind of working on it with the Tesla dash like underscore AI account. But I think, yeah, even though your vehicle is on 12.3.6 with Hardware 3, that's the exact version and hardware that my vehicle has. I still adore my vehicle. I don't have any plan to update. I might buy a different vehicle, but I still adore this vehicle. And yeah, our vehicle should be getting the update in the next couple waves. Every recent wave for FSD has only gone out to about 1% of vehicles. That typically happens for about 1 to 3 waves, and then you start to see expand outward from there. So just keep an eye out, kind of follow accounts like me, like Omar, Yamin. We typically share information about off software updates that come out, especially discussing it here. And yeah, it's been a long wait, but we're right on the edge of everyone starting to finally get the updates to our on Hardware 3. So yeah, just a little more patience. We'll be there.
Very good. Anything else on FSD, Tesla, Robotaxis, Optimus, 1010, Cybertruck, production, deliveries, Elon's tweets?
What do you think that the power share for powering your home will come to more vehicles beyond the Cybertruck, which is like a normal Tesla, like a Model Y, is something like the equivalent of 6 power walls?
Robert?
I met the guy who built the systems that do that. He says they need new hardware. Cybertruck has the new hardware. My vehicle does not have the hardware and cannot be retrofitted. The older cars. Will the refresh Model Y do this? That sounds reasonable, right? So next year, when we see a new Model Y, I would assume it's a two-way power system, but we have to see.
I would be shocked if the new Model Y has it. I would be very surprised because my understanding or what I've observed is that the take rates for power sharing on the Cybertruck is not very high. The process of getting it online has been cumbersome, very labor intensive, and scaling that to a multi-million unit product would be insanely difficult, costly, and I don't know if it's necessary, to be honest with you. But.
I agree with all that. You're probably right, Yaman. It's probably too early, but I'll also say that having like 6 power walls in your car, even with if they can sustain a daily charge and discharge, then you can cut your utility bills substantially. Like for me in Puerto Rico, if I have the Cybertruck and it's actually able to discharge similar to a Powerwall, which it's not currently, but if it's able to do that, then I have a utility savings of almost $10,000 a year, because the rates are cut in half by maximizing the discounted time frame, and then also the power company pays you if you have a Cybertruck connected to the grid in Puerto Rico. They pay you $5,000 per year to rent, portions of your battery.
Tesla scope.
So I think I'll just a little bit of debate. I think I will partially disagree with the notion that there's not really too much value in seeing it. Not necessarily in the 3, not necessarily in the S or the X, but I think in the Model Y, It's going to be a long time until we see the Cybertruck expanding into other markets, whereas the Model 3 and Y have been in many markets for a long time. And kind of exactly kind of the use case that he brought up is there are a lot of countries where either power outages are a lot more common or otherwise just being able to have that battery backup. There's a lot more use case and practicality for it. I keep it short. I spent a full month in the Philippines and it's a very different place than where I live currently. And I saw many applications where precisely what they just said would have worked perfectly, and being able to have those vehicles already in the market just as a little bit of an update to the kind of the high voltage system. That's mostly all it takes to be able to support that. I don't see it as a retrofit, but I could see it coming out in other vehicles. But I think Tesla's historically always kind of showed off their new technology in their refreshes and new vehicles, like we've seen in the Model S and X with the ventilated seats. We saw the new drive unit kind of technology. We've seen a lot of new technology in the Cybertruck, and I think very slowly you see that kind of make its way into the other vehicles. Like we now have the Model 3 with the ventilated seats that originally was just in the Model S and X, including the backseat camera
So
or the
got it.
screen.
Okay, so you're saying that you believe power share will come to the Model Y, the new Model Y, sometime next year.
I think
Is
there's a
that your
good chance
position?
of that. Yes.
Wait, anything is possible in this world, right? I mean, pretty much anything. Are you saying 10% probability, 20% probability, or more than 50? I'm fishing for a coffee bet here. Come on.
I'd say I'll go with 50. I might probably closer to 30%. There's not much harm in adding it. It's just a little bit of a revision change to the BMS and some of the high voltage compared to the Cybertruck. It doesn't take up that much space either. It's just a way of different way of handling it. But yeah, 50%. I'll take a coffee bet for that.
I mean, if you're only 30%, we agree then, I guess. And my issue with it is not on the vehicle side, but it's on getting the house ready for it. It's not as easy as the Cybertruck owners are finding out.
I think it's also because it's not as common with a feature being more common on more vehicles. It allows for the expectation for installers to be able to be more accustomed to it, to make the actual installation process easier. We saw some
But it's
uptick
not
when the Lightning
it's not
first had
just the
came out with it.
it's not just the installers, right? It's also the permitting process that you have to go through. So
Yeah.
now you've made it really. I mean, I just don't see it. We'll take a coffee, but let's see what Omar has to say. Actually, before that, Bull 2035, and then Omar.
Yeah, I just had a quick question for Omar. I don't hear much about the sound system in the Cybertruck, but I've read reviews that talk about it being an amazing sound system. Are you able to compare that with the your new Model 3 along with the Mercedes that you have? How the Cybertruck sound compares?
Yeah, all Teslas have amazing sound systems. The Cybertruck has a really great one. Just the extra space in the Cybertruck really adds a extra level of dimension to it. It's got like a monster subwoofer. I think it's actually got two of them. So it really is one of the best sound systems you've ever heard in a car. I had an audio engineer in the car with me who also remarked, wow, it's really difficult in a very angular truck like this to have a sound experience that's great for the user. And he was really impressed with what they'd done listening in the car. He's like, this is like a high end studio grade sound system in here. So, absolutely, it's top notch. I'd maybe say it's even a little bit better than the Model 3, but the Model 3's obviously got an incredible sound system as well.
Any thoughts on the power share?
I expect power share to be added to all Tesla vehicles. It is true that for a lot of people, the cost benefit isn't worth it. And it's going to be real, maybe thousands of dollars to get the hardware set up in their house. And then, they're probably going to barely ever use it. But it's not something that Tesla has to do necessarily. They're independent installers who do it, your local electrician or whatever. For them to just add support into the car, it's just replacing PS1 with PS2, literally. So they just put the new version of the part in, and that's it. It supports power in or out. I think it's really good functionality for an EV to have. The battery is several times larger than a power wall. So you have certain people, in disaster areas, maybe Florida, that kind of thing, where it could be very valuable for them and they might want to get it done. Um, you can see on the PowerShare website, tesla.com/PowerShare, they don't just talk about the Cybertruck, they talk about other Tesla vehicles. So in time, I do think they'll add PowerShare support to all vehicles. I don't know if it'll be in the new Model Y or not, but I think that is their plan.
Wow. There you go. You have Telescope, Omar, and Robert Scoble agreeing on it that PowerShare will come to other Tesla vehicles. Telescope, I'll work on a coffee bet. Maybe we can put a timeline on it as well. I want to say a thank you to everyone who is liking and sharing this space on X and also on YouTube. We have record participation on YouTube right now in live chat, and number of viewers, concurrent viewers are on the record right now. I don't know why. Maybe because of 1010 coming up, maybe macro topics that are about to be pretty important to markets, or maybe it is what the future is now put on the screen. Maybe that's why, who knows? All the hands and new speakers on X. What a day for Tesla Live. Edward.
Yeah, I just wanted to add it to the sound system of the Cybertruck. Now, the speakers are not the issue or anything with the quality. The quality is because of the sound confinement in the vehicle. You don't have any outside noise. You can barely hear road noise at all inside of the vehicle. So when you're in the vehicle, you're just hearing the sound that you want to hear, not all the extraneous sounds. So, and that's the big one. Plus, the sound isn't leaving the vehicle either. When the windows are closed and everything's secured, it's not just disappearing out the doors or out the cracks or anything. The sound system is insane because of the way the vehicle is designed, not because of a bunch of speakers in it.
Thank you, Edward. Bob's at Walmart.
Sorry, it's my first time in this space. Thanks for letting me speak. I guess this question's probably to Holmars. I've seen some photographs that suggest that there may be a bumper camera in the Robotaxi. And I know there's been some current concern that it can't see below the bumper. What do you think the chances are that the Robotaxi does include some new camera system that would then get possibly put in new versions, or would they offer some sort of retrofit? What are your thoughts on that being a possibility?
I don't think that a front bumper camera is necessary for autonomy. You have obviously humans, they don't have their head in the bumper and they're able to drive. So you have kind of an existence proof there. What's important is really being intelligent and understanding what's around you. Even in the Cybertruck for auto park and that type of stuff, they're not using the front bumper camera yet. Now, we have seen some vehicles driving around, some Model 3s with the traditional sensor suite of the Model 3 covered up and a little bit of a different camera configuration, including a front bumper camera, different side cameras, and things like that. So I do think that the Robotaxi, the Cybercab, will be a pure vision vehicle, but the camera placement will be slightly different. Obviously, it's going to be customized for that vehicle, which is going to be a different shaped vehicle than the Model 3 and Y. So I think that's really what that's about. I do see eventually new vehicles getting front bumper cameras added. They've already added it to the Cybertruck. They're going to be adding it to the Cybercab, I assume. I could see it coming to the rest of the lineup as well, but I don't think a retrofit will be necessary. It's a nice to have. It may make things a little more accurate, but I don't think it's important enough that they'll necessarily want to offer a retrofit.
Yeah, I
Very
tend
good.
to.
Thank you. Please stay on mute. Raise your hand. Tonight, AI amateurs, 9 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. Central. 8 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Central, 5 p.m. Pacific. We have a lot to talk about, from Apple to ChatGPT to Figure AI to a couple of all-in summit conversations, one with Sergey Brin, one with Mark Bainoff as well. I found pretty interesting today. So we have a lot to talk about tonight in AI Amateurs. Make sure to be there. Ruckuses, go ahead.
So just piggybacking on the last topic, as far as Robotaxi goes, is it possible that we're assuming that the first version of this commercial Robotaxi is going to run off of the same software that we're in beta testing right now? You know, is it possible that those first few cars maybe won't be vision only just to get the service going, or maybe it has its own proprietary version of the software that we don't have? Or you know what I'm saying? Are we assuming that it's running off the same 12 dot program that we're all going on? Thanks.
Good question. Omar?
I mean, it's not going to be exactly the same software that's running on our cars, obviously, but the technical foundations are the same.
Right.
Wait, what do you mean by guy? Okay, I understand we have new speakers, but you got to stay on mute. What do you mean by it's not going to be the same software? Can you elaborate on that?
Well, it's going to be running FSD unsupervised. So obviously the Cybercab needs to reverse. We haven't seen that in any released version of the software yet. It needs to be able to park itself, drive. The failure use cases are slightly different than FSD supervised. When FSD supervised has an issue, it can always just throw up the red hands and say, hey, take over, and the user can take over. For FSD unsupervised, there is no user in the car who can take over. So your failure cases need to be different. For example, in a type of crash where, sorry, not a crash, a software failure where you might typically ask the user to take over, you may instead pull over or something like that. So there are some differences, even though it's a model that's generally trained the same way as what we've seen in the cars. It may be, first of all, a bigger model designed to run on hardware 5, but it is also going to be a model where the behaviors and the failure cases need to be a little more robust than a supervised system where you have a driver behind the wheel.
So how would they demo that on 1010? Would they use hardware 5 in the car then?
Probably it's going to be demoed on hardware 4 because I don't think hardware 5 is ready yet. I don't even think they have any like pre-production boards or anything like that that they can put in a car. So it'll probably be hardware 4, but I imagine once it ships, it'll be hardware 5. So, you know, what we would see at the demo is obviously like FSD unsupervised 0.1, and they would continue working on training this unsupervised model for it to run on the Cybercab and other Tesla vehicles once it's ready.
Very interesting. Interesting. I am looking forward to 1010. It's going to be amazing. Yoda. Can you guys hear Yoda?
I can't hear Yoda.
Okay. Maybe if he can come back up, we can continue the chat. 10-minute warning. No, 7-minute warning. Anything else? Any other questions, comments, wishes, dreams, grudges you'd like to share? Tonight's AI Amateurs, 8 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Central, 5 p.m. Pacific. We're going to talk. We have a lot to talk about. Yoda?
Yeah, I'm gonna short Tesla because the Bluetooth on the Model 3 is crap.
Is this the old or new Model 3?
This is the old.
Yeah, it's the old one's so bad. Exactly. Go ahead.
The new ones are really good.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, I think the Robotaxi is hopefully gonna run the FSD unsupervised on the kind of the uncorked hardware 4 so that it's not emulating that if it believes it's on like a hardware 3 platform. So yeah, I think the 1010 event is probably gonna be one of the most exciting product unveils. I can't wait to get the invite. Hopefully I do. If anyone gets it, it could be as early as this week, I think. So really looking forward to that.
I have a comment on the Robotaxi 1010, which I think I think it's something worth considering. Is that so the Cybertrucks are, I think the sales are slowing down a little bit, but once FSD is rolled out for Cybertruck, I think sales will pick up. And then with the 1010 and Robotaxi, used Teslas where the FSD can be added to it, I think they increase in value substantially from where they are today. And so that's something I'm considering is if the FSD rolls out more feverishly, the 1010 is some big event with Robotaxi, well, a used Tesla might be time to get it.
All right, Sawyer tweeted about an hour ago, Cybertruck deliveries in Canada likely to start in late October. Cybertruck deliveries in Canada likely to start in late October, Sawyer says. Okay.
And thank you for this space, man. You've done just such a wonderful job hosting, and everybody's done a great job commenting. I really, one of the best run spaces I've seen, and very happy to be a part of it.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. All right, tonight, AI Amateurs, 8 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Central, 5 p.m. Pacific. Omar, would you like to close us off?
FOMC this week, baby. Let's fucking go.
All right, everybody. Thank you very much. And I will chat with you in a few hours. Take care.